Hey everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. I am here with another Rina Kent vlog. I have so many Rina Kent vlogs that I've been doing, but we're almost at the end of our journey here to finish her entire backlist. So I am reading the next two books in the Legacy of God series. I am really nervous for these ones because I've heard mixed things and on one of them, and then the other one, like, I'm really nervous about his character because he's not very likable in the other books to me. But anyways, we're here. We are going to be reading God of Wrath, which is Jeremy Volkov's romance, which this is the one I'm nervous too for because I loved Jeremy as a kid in Adrian's trilogy. I didn't love that trilogy, but I loved Jeremy, and I've heard he's kind of an ass in this and people don't really like him. So, and it's making me nervous because these are my annotated copies of Jen's, and she actually has a warning in the beginning that says, "Warning, I don't care for Jer and I get sassy." So we're gonna see how this goes with Jeremy. And then we have God of Ruin, which is Landon's romance. And Landon is not my favorite guy. He's very manipulative. He seems like a psychopath, although I end up loving lots of the psychopaths. So maybe I'll love Landon. But this is going to be his romance. So I just kind of started a little bit ago on this, so I'm not really going to do a check-in quite yet because I didn't get that far. I'm like about 50 pages in, but I just wanted to do a quick introduction because I was filming already. So we're going to be going over these two books for this vlog. I'm excited. If you are new to my channel or you don't know, I do have a whole Rina Kent playlist for all the vlogs. I've been vlogging my journey reading her entire backlist to get to the Legacy of God series. So if you're interested, I'll try to put it up in the cards. Check out that playlist. I have been through a lot of books, so I've been loving this. I love Rina Kent, so it's been an interesting journey. They're not all hits. I rant about some, so it's not like I love every single Rina Kent, but I am excited. So I will check back in with you once I get a little bit further in God of Wrath. All right, see you in a bit. Hey guys, so I am here with my first check-in. It's kind of late at night right now and I'm getting kind of tired. I feel like I always get tired if I'm reading a paperback in bed compared to if I'm reading my Kindle. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the light that just like keeps me up, but I'm kind of tired. So I think I'm going to call it a night, but I think I'm about 30% through this. So I am reading God of Wrath, which is Jeremy and Cecily's, is it Cecily? Yes, Cecily's romance. And I've written a lot of notes already because I need to keep track of all the things that are going on in this book. But I am not hating it so far. It's not blowing me away, but I'm not hating Jeremy by any means like I thought maybe I was going to because I saw some conflicting things. I mean, he definitely is cold. I loved him as a kid, but he grew up to be like an heir of the Bratva. You know, he grew up Adrian's son, who is not the pecan, but he's high up and he's like very methodical and like the thinker and planner. And so you can definitely see that with Jeremy as an adult here. He's a very cold and meticulous, and he's been raised by Adrian. So he's doing what he needs to do. So the way this opens up is we have Cecily, and she is actually the daughter of one of my favorite couples that I didn't think I would love, and it was in the Royal Elite series. I believe it's called Black Knight, if I'm getting the name right. And it was Xander and Kim's romance. And that one I did a vlog for that as well, so you can check that. I'll try to remember to put up in the cards here. But I was really shook by that romance. There's a lot of trauma that Kim has to go through. There's a lot of like dark stuff. So it's kind of cool to see their daughter. I don't know if I fully connect to her yet. I'm finding her kind of frustrating at certain parts. But she sneaks into the heathens like initiation, which we've seen happen in a couple of the previous books. She sneaks in because Landon asked her to, because he is trying to spy on them, get information on their house and all that kind of stuff. And she'll do anything for Landon because she's in love with him. So Landon has basically friend zoned her, and she's been in love with him for years and just kind of secretly pines for him. Maybe not so secretly to her friends, though. And so Landon, I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about Landon, you guys. But anyways, he uses her and has her go sneak in. She wears a wig because she's got this silver white type of hair. So she wears a wig to kind of get through. And Jeremy ends up catching her. And he figures out that she's from the elite side, you know, the British people. And he's like, why did you come here? You know, and she wouldn't tell him. And so he chases her down, but it's like turning her on. So you're kind of seeing the introduction to Cecily's kinks, which she comes off like a prude and she's a virgin and all that stuff. But secretly, she has some kind of thing in her past that she's bringing up as like some kind of trauma that may have happened to her. I don't know if maybe she was drugged, but I'll get into that later. But she basically is into this primal play and she's into the CNC stuff. So he ends up catching her, you know, kind of messing with her a little bit. She does end up getting away, but he knows it was her. And so later, she ends up, first let me bring up this one thing. Okay, so since she's in love with Landon, she has actually joined one of the sex clubs that Landon goes to. He doesn't know she knows or anything, but she knows Landon. She doesn't have these like rose-colored glasses when it comes to Landon. She does know he's effed up and he's into a lot of things. And so she had joined the sex club just because Landon did, and thought they kind of shared the same kinks. And so she decides to bite the bullet and actually request like a match. And she basically answered all the questions to gear it so that it would go to Landon. And Landon would be her partner in primal play and CNC. And so she gets matched and you have like a week to meet up and they'll do the primal play type of thing. So she ends up going with Annika, who is Jeremy's sister, and her group of friends to Jeremy's mansion. And that night she gets like kind of attacked almost like from behind, and he shows her the phone and it's like shows their match and he's like, run. And she thinks it's Landon. She's so dumb. Like the stuff that she like has no clue. It's like, it's obviously not Landon. It was frustrating me. But so she goes running and then he takes her down to the dirt and is really rough with her. And she didn't think he would be like that rough. And it's Jeremy and he is really rough with her. And he basically like gets her off in the dirt. And she realizes it's Jeremy and freaks out, you know. But basically Jeremy had hacked into her phone, figured this whole sex club thing out. He found like a secret folder she had that was like all these pictures of Landon. So he knows she's like obsessed with Landon. He doesn't get it, but he's been very motivated to look into Landon because Landon's a competitor of the other school and he's heading up that club. And so he knows I need to keep an eye on this guy. But Landon is really good at hiding his deviousness, and he really reminds me of like that compartmentalizing like serial killer type of thing. I don't know, Landon gives me weird vibes. And so he can't really find a lot on Landon, but he does know a lot of stuff Landon's up to. So he decides to kind of just watch her. He watches her and kind of stalks her for like a couple of months. She can always feel him watching her, but Landon told her, just act like nothing happened. Don't engage him. You know, eventually he'll get bored. And then he's had like limited action, like interaction with her, Landon has, because he doesn't want to cause suspicions and all of that. So one day she's heading home and she's walking with her earbuds in at night, and which is dumb as a single alone woman at night, and she's like, these guys were following her with probably bad thought like ideas in mind. And Jeremy basically beats the shit out of them and the jig is up. He basically takes her with him. He forces her onto his motorcycle and he takes her to this, what looks like a private like dining room in like a posh place or whatever. And he's kind of still asking her, like, why were you at the initiation and all that kind of stuff. And so then he basically shows her who Landon really is, because this place actually was another sex club. And he says, you know, Landon isn't into one kink. He's into every kink. He's a part of every sex club here and everywhere. Like, he is into everything. And so he opens up, and it was like, I guess Landon also was doing exhibitionism. So like, he was in there, lifts up this painting, and it shows like that glass. And she basically sees Landon screwing this chick that's like gagged and bound, and she pukes. And the thing is that when she signed up for that sex club thing, she had to give like her, you know, big nose, like the lines she's not willing to cross. Her, you know, so and he kept asking her why these are the things that she can't handle. And it was gagging and drugging. So her seeing Landon gagging somebody, you know, was difficult. And then he noticed that she disassociates. And I think this ties into like his mom had mental health illness. His mom like kind of didn't remember who she was and made up a whole different personality. And so he recognizes disassociating. So I think it's from his mom's issues that he had to see as a really young child. So he's become fascinated with that she does that, because he's been following her and seeing that she does that. The other thing is, so like to get her out of this disassociative state, he like basically tries kissing her. He takes alcohol in his mouth and like spits it into her mouth. And then they all of a sudden start making out, and she comes out of it. So he kind of leaves her alone for a little bit, and she's kind of sad. But she's like, why am I sad that he's like leaving me alone? And she ends up getting drunk one night with her friends. And she basically sends a text. She says she sends it to Landon, but it went to Jeremy about wanting primal play and CNC type of thing. And so Jeremy like freaking leaves his meeting with his group of like his club and hightails it out of there and shows up. He sneaks into her room at night. And he basically she was like masturbating. And so he was like, show me what you do. And then he goes down on her and then forces her to blow him. And that was kind of tough too, because if her thing was like gagging and he was like pretty forceful with his blowjob, you know, that kind of was an iffy situation. So this guy is obsessed with her. He's very like, she's like, why me? Like, why are you like, is this all because I went to the initiation? He's like, you made me notice you, you know, you made the mistake of making me interested. So let me see if I'm forgetting anything. Okay, so I think that's it. That's kind of where I'm at. It's definitely interesting. I just don't know how I feel fully about Cecily. She is very closed off with her friends. She doesn't open up to them about anything. She's like hiding her true self. I did love a scene with her talking to Xander and Kim, her mom and dad, and they're just so sweet and loving and so supportive of her. So I did like that scene. That's the thing I think is so beneficial to have read the backlist to enjoy these more, because the parents have POVs in these, and you know, like you actually know the parents, so you actually feel connected to them. So anyways, I'm talking for a long time already, so I'm going to hit the hay. Who fucking says that? Anyways, I'm going to go to bed, and I will check in with you hopefully tomorrow. I'm probably not going to take this with me to work, so it's probably going to be me slowly going through this while I read another book, because I have another book I want to read for Jen's historical romance club, so I need to finish that. But I will check in with you probably when I'm like halfway through the book. And hopefully it gets a little bit more exciting too. Hey guys, so I am on break at work, and honestly, this is later in the week. I have not been good about being on top of this book. I had different ALCs and other arcs and stuff that I needed to read, and so I kind of just was bouncing between this book and those. And so I think I've been having kind of a hard time with it too, because Jeremy is pretty tough. hero to get behind in this, and I don't think I'm really fully connected to Cecily. So I've just been kind of dragging on this, but I have a bunch to go over. I even like wrote notes because there was so much that I haven't covered yet. So I think I'm about like 70% through now. So let me just kind of dive into my thoughts here. I don't know if I'll go into such a lot of details on this like I usually do. Maybe. I wrote a lot of notes, so I don't want to make this super long. So let me take a look at my notes here because it's been a few days since I need to do my check-in. So basically where we left off, like they're kind of in an interesting place, and Jer basically tells her, you need to meet me at this location at 7 p.m. or whatever, and it ends up being like this abandoned house that's like fenced in and everything, and he had bought this property for himself, like to kind of get away to, or for whatever purposes he needed. And so they kind of meet out there and they do their primal play. It gets pretty intense. His sex is so rough, considering she's a virgin, but she really wants it. She wants like the roughness, the fighting, the whole CNC. And I think that's why I'm just not really connecting to this, because I've read so much CNC lately that I'm kind of checked out from CNC. It's kind of being like boring to me now, and just the same old thing, yet another CNC book, and I'm just kind of over it. But theirs gets pretty crazy. He like chases her out to like the lake. There's like a dock there. He throws her down there, and he like, I think he even did like knife play at this point and like put like the handle of the knife up her, and I'm just never really that into the knife like going inside me. No thanks. I don't think I really want that, but it's fine. A lot of people really like that. So he like totally roughly has sex with her. You know, he's always talking about, oh, like how she'll bathe in his blood and put his cock in her blood, and blah, blah. It's just a little much the way he talks. So then he kind of takes her back up to the cabin, kind of cleans her up. You're thinking she really needs some aftercare after the brutality of this first sexual experience. He kind of does his version of aftercare, not great aftercare. And then he like gets pissed because she's super out of it. She goes into like these very catatonic states, like I've said, I think I said previously, but plus she has like this sleep paralysis that kind of happens. So she's really like kind of out of it, and he's talking dirty to her and obsessed he is with her and this and that and dirty talk. And he's like, I'm gonna F you. What does he say? Yeah, he says something like he'll fuck her so there's nothing left for Landon. Fuck her so hard that there's nothing left for Landon. And she's like trying to shake her head like, no, like Landon's not even what I'm thinking. And she says Landon's name and she's out of it. So he thinks she's like dreaming of Landon and fantasizing about Landon and wishing it was Landon. So that fucking pisses him off. And he basically like abandons her there. So it's just, he's just a little much. So then the whole fire at Jeremy's happens that we've seen in the previous books. That's what's interesting about this series. It goes back in time to the events of like the previous books. So we're kind of seeing things happen with those couples and events that happened. We're seeing it through like Jer and Cecily's kind of point of view now. So she feels awful because she knows Landon was responsible for that and that she kind of helped that happen. And she goes to like check on Jeremy because he almost dies. He gets like he was kind of underneath something stuck in his room, and so he's in a pretty bad spot and he has to recover for a little bit. And she tries to apologize, you know, she's just worried about him. So then she goes out with her friends and she has a run-in with Landon, and Landon's like kind of all cocky and stuff, and she's kind of realizing she's seeing the real Landon, even though she kind of knew he was fucked up, but she's really realizing how narcissistic he is. And she's pissed because he basically like used her infatuation and used her to get what he wants, and he doesn't give enough. And so she's pretty like irritated with Landon. And then, she goes out, and then Jeremy's there, and he kind of forces her on his bike and then basically takes her back to the abandoned cabin. And this is where it gets really fucked up, because he wants to break her and kind of make her tell her secrets, why she is the way she is, why she has those hard limits of like no choke, like gagging or drugging, and like what happened to her to make her have like these states where she totally goes kind of catatonic and like kind of checks out. And so the way he's going to do this is Russian roulette. And so he literally plays Russian roulette with her. And she's like sobbing and not wanting to do it. At one point, he literally sticks the gun in her pussy. And he shoots it off. Now you find out later, like he took the bullets out. And so he was just doing it to get to her. But I still don't give an F. Mentally, that is so fucking traumatic and just horrible. And I don't want no freaking gun up me. No, thank you. So that was a really crazy moment, but it forces her to tell him the truth about what happened to her and how her ex-boyfriend had basically drugged her and was like going to force her to like took her clothes off, took pictures of her, had video of her, and how he was going to like make her suck his dick, but she puked all over him. So now Jeremy wants to find this guy and ruin him. So that happened. And then let's see. A couple weeks pass. They're like having sex every night. He fucks her completely clothed, doesn't do any cuddling, doesn't stay the night with her. And so it feels very disconnected, you know? And then she actually goes to the fight to watch him fight Landon, and he sees her, and then like Landon whispers something to him, and Jeremy like loses his shit and beats the shit out of Landon and wins. And so she like, they have a deal where she goes to the cottage thing like every night, and she shows up, and he seemed like super relieved, like didn't think she would come to him. And so you kind of see some difference happening, because like he's kind of opening up to her. It's as sensitive as Jeremy can get. He's not the best. But then she has one of her sleep paralysis episodes, and he completely helps her out of it. And I think Jeremy is like really good at this because of all of his mother's instability and mental like problems. So, oh, there was one point where he asked her if she wished it was Landon who took her first time and was doing this with, and she said no, she didn't. She realizes that she didn't really love Landon. She had like this weird, you know, kind of crush on him, and she was idolizing him, and really it wasn't him that she loved, and that she didn't want it to be him. And then we have an incident where she meets Maya, who is actually Mia's twin, and they are the twin sisters of Nikolai. And Maya's this like hot, sexy bitch that basically wants to marry Jeremy. She's Russian, and she wants to marry Jeremy and have a place of power. So she's a total fucking bitch. Mia is the twin that we've met previously, that she seems pretty cool in different books. So she kind of gets upset with that whole interaction, because she's like hanging all over Jeremy. And so she ends up going out to a club with Ava. Even though she hates clubbing, she'll do anything for Ava. And Ava kind of comes off as like a kind of a shitty friend sometimes, like very selfish. I just don't think she's very self-aware of like everybody else's shit. But she gets like approached by a couple guys that night, and then like they kind of like get Ava to go to the bar, and then she's dancing with two guys, and one of them says something to her that literally is like the exact phrase her ex who assaulted her said to her. And so she goes into one of her catatonic kind of like crazy states, and Jeremy shows up and he gets them, and he ends up getting her out of it, and they have a hot sexual encounter, and he helps them get home and everything. And he ends up finding out that these guys were basically offered drugs by somebody at the club to do that to Ava. But her ex is literally in another country, so it's like, how could it be him? Did he pay somebody? Why would he do that? And so I'm kind of wondering, is it Landon? Because nobody else knows about what happened to her. Her parents, none of her friends know. And that was kind of a frustrating thing to me too, is she does everything on her own and never tells her friends like what's going on with her or what she's been through. So they have no idea that she was assaulted or anything like that. But so I'm kind of wondering if it is going to be Landon. And so then we go onto the fallout from the last book of everything that happened with Creighton and Anika. And so, basically Cecily had helped out with that. Helps later too with Creighton getting his, like, kind of kidnapping her. But at first, like, when the whole shootout happens and Anika's sent to the States and all of this, Jeremy basically stops talking to her, and she finally runs into her, and he's like hateful towards her because she abandoned Anika with her friends. And he's like, I don't want anybody that's not loyal. So she feels pretty guilty because she is like the mother and always helps everybody else in the group. And so she ends up helping Creighton, thinking that he just wants to talk to Anika, but he actually kidnaps her. And so now she's kind of put in that bad spot between him and Jer, and like Jer's gonna want to know where she is. But so there was a really good part where she finally told her friends about her assault, and so all of that. So that's kind of where I'm left off. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes because I haven't checked in like active enough on this. So I'm sorry, this is kind of a long clip, but that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not fully buying into this relationship. It's very toxic. I'm seeing why Jen had a lot of issues, and she does have a lot of sassy comments in the annotations, which is making me laugh. But I don't know about Jeremy. I'm kind of bummed because I love him as a kid, and he's not that great of a man so far here. So I got to go back to work, so I will check back in with you guys once I finish the book. All right, see you guys in a bit. Hey everyone, so I am back with my final check-in for God of Wrath. I apologize, this has been kind of a mess with this vlog so far because this book was kind of hard for me. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, and it took me most of the week to finish it. So I've kind of been randomly checking in, so luckily I kind of wrote notes as I was reading because I wasn't on top of check-ins. So I apologize, but I'm just going to kind of try to quickly go over the stuff that happens near the end here and just kind of sum up my feelings on this book. So where we kind of left off was that Cecily had basically helped Creighton get Anika, and of course he ends up kidnapping her. She didn't know he was going to do that. So, now Anika is missing and everything. And, she does have an interaction with, Landon, which was kind of weird because he ends up going to her and telling her she needs to get back with Jeremy, and that Mia and, what was the other girl's name again? Maya and Mia are like hanging around Jeremy, and he seems pretty concerned about Mia, and wants her to get back with Jeremy so that she's not getting involved with that. And so there's something going on with Landon and Mia. So that's probably going to come into play in the next book. And he kind of tells her, he's still obsessed with you. He's still stalking you, which she didn't think he really wanted anything else to do with her. Oops, hold on. My notes are falling. Okay. So basically she refuses to help him, and he kind of knows that Jeremy's stalking her. So he goes to like kiss her, and then all of a sudden Jeremy and Mia show up and kind of get involved in there, and Mia's like attacking him and like pissed off. And so there's definitely something going on with Mia and Landon, so that should be interesting. I gotta tell you, I don't really like Landon. I haven't liked him in any of these 3 books, so I don't know how I'm gonna feel about his book. So we'll see if Rina like does a good job and like kind of gives him a redemption arc to me, because he is just so manipulative and like he uses people, and he's kind of like the mastermind kind of behavior. So I don't know how I feel about Landon, but basically Jer wants to find out where Anika is, and he kind of like basically takes her because she knows. But he takes her for like the week or something, and she's just there's not really like a captor-captive feeling here. They ended up just spending like the time together every night. They're banging it out. They're like together, and he's not pressuring her to tell him where Anika is. But she does feel guilty about his parents like not knowing where Anika is, and so she does end up telling him, but making sure he's not going to hurt Creighton or anything like that. Oh, and there was a scene where she ends up going to his house and hanging with his friends. So Jeremy's like more public with it. And I didn't like how Cecily wasn't like, and she was about to go home to visit with her parents and he wanted to go with her and she didn't want him to. She's like nervous about her parents finding out she's with somebody like Jeremy, which is completely understandable. They don't realize he has ties to the mafia. How do you introduce your, like the future heir to like a Bratva empire, like to your parents? So it's understandable, but I felt like Jeremy was more in than she was. So she ends up. Oh, there was one really cute part in that scene, and it was like when Nikolai was like asking for info on Brandon's, and he would give her info on Jeremy, and she didn't really need any, but like he just really wanted more info on his, I think he calls him his like lotus flower or something like that. It's really, really cute. So I am really excited to get to their book, but I have to wait a little bit. So she ends up going out to visit her parents, and that was really cool. I loved seeing Xander and Kim again. Like, they are such supportive and loving parents, and so it was really great to see them. But then Jeremy shows up, and Xander is having none of this fucking asshole. Like, Xander knew there was something wrong with him from the get-go. He kind of, like, threatens him, but Kim is, like, totally on the side because she ends up telling her mom about her assault and how Jeremy really helped her come to terms with it and start like dealing with her trauma. And so Kim is just like supportive of that relationship and everything. So he ends up staying there and then sneaking into her room. And that's when they decide to they even did a little bit primal play in the bedroom, which is weird. And then they decided, oh, now's a good time to do anal. So we get an anal scene here under her parents' roof, which was just kind of like, eh. But anyways, so they're like together and they're out with her friends when they go back home. And then she gets like this text and he knows something is up. Oh, one thing that I loved in this scene was he totally went off on Ava, because to me, Ava is like come off pretty self-absorbed and selfish. And she just kind of like uses people, it feels like. She totally uses Cecily and like takes advantage of her, and Jeremy full on like calls her out on it. And so I loved that scene. I'm hoping she's gonna have some more growth by the time we get to her book, which will be like the last book. But anyway, so Cecily gets a text and he ends up following her outside and she's talking to Landon and he fucking loses it. And so she ends up telling him the truth about how she was, spying on him for Landon, on their house and everything, and how, that was how the fire started, and she felt really guilty. And he full on like chokes her out, thinking like she's been spying him the whole time. She's just trying to seduce him. She's manipulating him, which is all BS. And he's like choking her out. He eventually lets her go and is like basically ends things with her, which was just ridiculous. And then he ends up like getting drunk and like kind of having a heart-to-heart with his dad, because his dad visits. And so he, is going to try and get her back. At the same time, we finally have the fallout of like the person, like, so she ends up kind of walking the streets crying and shows up at the shelter she volunteers at. And then the person that was setting her up, like at the club to get like those guys saying her ex's statement and stuff, is this guy that works at like the shelter. And it just came out of nowhere. It just didn't even fit into the storyline. And now this guy is like trying to drug her and then like forces the water that's drugged into her mouth and is gonna assault her, and it just seems so over the top. Like that whole third act little like drama and conflict just seems so stupid and out of there. Like it would have made more sense that Landon was doing it, honestly, just to manipulate her and mess with people's lives. But it's like some random guy that was like friends with her ex, and they would kind of sexually assault people together, and he really wanted her because she was unfinished business. It was just a little much. But of course, Jer comes, saves the day, blah, blah, blah. And then they end up together. So the thing is that there's this long drawn out thing too, where like he wants to be with her and she won't forgive him. And then he like basically does his type of groveling by stalking her during her summer break and like following her everywhere. And, eventually she forgives him and they're together. I'm really summing up the end, but it was just a little much at the end. So Honestly, this book just didn't really work for me. I didn't buy into Jared and Cecily. I didn't love the CNC, and it could be because I've read so much CNC lately that I'm over it. Jeremy was kind of an asshole with no redeeming qualities pretty much the entire book. I started to warm up to him a little bit, but like Cecily also annoyed me with her choices, and I didn't get like why she was in love with Landon. Like this guy just used you and friend zoned you and treated you like crap. So I don't know. It just didn't really work. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. I gave it 5 chilies because there's so much fucking spice in this. I mean, gunplay, blood play, breath play, blood. There's just so much shit in this. Anal, all that kind of stuff. So, primal. Lots of good kinky stuff in here. I just didn't really care about it because I didn't care about the relationship that much. So I am very nervous to go into Landon. So I'm actually taking a break. And I'm reading one of my 12 Recs from 12 Friends, which is like a historical romance to give myself a little bit of a break. I might pick up, I have my buddy read to do too before we have our show on the 30th. Don't know when I'm posting this, but so I'm probably going to put off the Landon one till Thanksgiving, maybe, since I have a couple days off for Thanksgiving, and I can just focus on that one then. So I will be checking back in with you guys once I start Landon's romance, and hopefully that one will be a little bit better of an experience. All right, see you guys on the next part. Hey guys, so I am back. I have started the second book for this vlog, which is the 4th book in this series, and I really got sucked in. So I am already 50% through God of Ruin. I was starting this kind of on Thanksgiving, and with everything going on Thanksgiving, I really didn't do any check-ins. So honestly, my vlogs are already long as it is, so we're gonna probably just do 50% and then once I finish the book. So I probably won't go into too much detail, but my vlogs, I already give all spoilers anyways and kind of explain everything. So I'll go into as much detail as I can and give you my thoughts on this. Honestly, like, I'm loving this book. I'm so sucked in. I don't know if I'm 100% behind Landon yet, but it is much better than I was expecting. After God of Wrath, I was very frustrated with Jeremy, who I expected more from since I loved him as a kid, and I just thought he was an asshole the entire book. Now, Landon, I was even more nervous for because he's kind of been the villain. He's a master manipulator. He's total psychopath, tendencies here. He feels like Killian times 100, kind of like he's way worse. He manipulates people, and he's kind of like this puppet master kind of guy. So I was like, I don't know if I can get behind Landon and his romance, but Rina Kent really sucked me into this book. I'm really loving it. So in this, this is going to be Mia and Landon's romance. And Mia is actually one of the twin sisters, sister of Nikolai. So Nikolai had been kidnapped at one point by Landon. Landon had set a lot of things in motion that kind of fucked with, I think it's the Heathens. I think that's their club name. Anyways, he really fucked with them and, had gotten like the other serpents to do like a fire and all this stuff, and things went down where he had like kidnapped and fucked with Nikolai. So Mia really wants revenge against Landon, and so her and her twin sister Maya kind of come up with this plan. Well, mostly Mia comes up with it and makes Maya come with her. They sneak this invite into this elite party. It's for the elites, the British guys, and Landon's basically the head of that club and group. And so she gets invited. It's like kind of like a masked, party. And she had already set things up ahead of time because she's friends with Landon's twin, Brandon. So she had previously been in the house. Basically, this was all set up to kind of fuck with Landon. She's sneaking through like vents and shit to like get to this control box where she has like a timer set for her trap. But Landon like catches her and like they kind of have action. She gets away. So she's able to pull off her plan, which is to all this like kind of like Carrie style. All this blood dumps all over Landon while he's up speaking in front of everybody. So that was kind of like one of her things. She's basically kind of after Landon, but he pretty much knew it was her. And so he kind of becomes interested in her and wants to know like what she's up to. She's become friends with Brandon. So one day she's over there gaming with him and she ends up leaving and she gets kind of scared. So the thing about Mia is she has a traumatic thing that happened in her past. We don't really know what, some type of kidnapping. We're kind of guessing because, you know, she is Bratva princess. So she also is selectively mute after her trauma. So she doesn't speak. She speaks sign language or like types out her messages on the phone to people. And so she, you know, has a pretty big trauma in her past and she's really scared of the dark. So when she was leaving one night, she kind of just like got in her head with like the dark woods around her and she started to kind of have a panic attack. And then Landon comes like out of the woods and scares the shit out of her and she just completely shuts down and freezes. And he gets like really into that. And he really likes her frozen and it's kind of triggers something in him because Landon is an artist. He's a sculptor and he's kind of been struggling to like finish anything. He's very perfectionist and nothing's really good enough for him. And she really inspires him, but she ends up kind of leaving him or whatever, but he starts to get a little too entranced with her and she becomes kind of like his muse. Okay, so he becomes pretty obsessed with her and he really wants her to be his muse. And he shows up to her school, which is like, they go to different schools, like I've set up before. They're kind of competitive like schools and stuff. So him showing up there isn't great either. He has done some fucked up things to her whole like group, her whole family. So they all hate Landon. And deservedly so. He's been pretty messed up. But he shows up there and kind of like makes her go with him to this abandoned house that like is like this haunted house type of thing that he's doing his like sculptures at. And he kind of wants her to do it with like be his muse and be there. So he ends up like, they have this crazy interaction where he has her like come over and be on his lap. And he totally like gets her off and she's really into it and feels like ashamed for being into this. But that's kind of like their first kind of interaction that they, you know, he's realizing she's kind of into him. He's really into her. And so he actually even learns sign language. He's very fast he knows multiple languages. So once he realizes, you know, he needs to communicate with her, he learns sign language so that way he communicate with her better, which was kind of interesting. I really liked that. So then another event happens where like she sleeps with like the lights on. She's very scared of the dark because of her trauma. And then all of a sudden the lights are cut and Landon like breaks into her room and he basically, like makes her give him a blowjob. Like he gets on her and she does it and she's really into it. So they have this crazy chemistry that's very intense. Like they're very good together. But then like he also runs into her because she goes to like a chess club because she's very into chess. It's like helps relieve a lot of her stress and issues. And so she ends up running into Landon there and everybody loves Landon. That's the thing is Landon is a total psychopath. He is kind of mimics emotions. He is very charming, like psychopaths are able to be. What's interesting is you do find out that like his parents knew there was something wrong with him, you know, that he was different. So they actually did have him see specialists and therapists and all of that. And he was diagnosed with antisocial personality. He has narcissistic behavior. So this guy, you know, there's really not much you can do for that type of individual. You know, so I really did love, there were certain things that came up too about, you know, certain people accepting him and his family and all that kind of stuff because he's not close to his twin and Glendon, which is his brother and sister, because he just doesn't really feel those emotions, and like he is a master manipulator. So it's just tough for him. So he ends up, he's very smart. He's very like, he's just crazy charismatic. So everybody just loves him at this chess day, and he ends up playing chess with her, and they kind of, oh wait, hold on. Okay, so I think they end up playing chess, and then also another time when she goes to that place with him, they play chess, and he basically kind of does a bet, like whoever wins gets this or whatever, and he wants her to know her kinks. She's a virgin, she's not really done anything, but she doesn't want to tell him that, and so basically he's like, we're going to explore your kinks to figure out what your kinks are. And so they end up doing like a primal play where they're running off. The thing I love is Mia is so fiery and feisty, and she gives Landon as good as he gets. And so she ends up like getting on the roof, and it's like not secure. Like she almost drops through, and he gets her, and he basically, you know, goes down on her, and they have a pretty intense, you know, she gets off. She's like, they have amazing chemistry. So, they're basically kind of hooking up, doing this stuff at this like abandoned house. He's using her as his muse. So there's definitely like some connection going on between them, and I do feel it. Another thing is basically like Jeremy wants somebody to spy on Landon, and she basically kind of offers it up because she's already kind of involved with him, and she kind of wants to see what he's up to. So she does spy on him, and one day she's at Brandon's like gaming with him, and she sneaks into Jeremy's room, and she hears him coming, so she like hides kind of like behind the curtains on like the patio area or the balcony, and she hears like one of his previous hookups that like works in his club like coming on to him, and she just gets grossed out, like he's hooking up with other people, and so she just gets kind of jealous, and so she decides to basically ghost him. And you're not going to ghost Landon and get away with it. I mean, this guy is dominant AF, and he is not going to take that. So, you know, there's going to be some repercussions for that. Okay, so what happens when she ghosts him? She basically sticks to Jer's side and with like Killian and Jer, so he can't ever like approach her. And so he's getting pretty frustrated. So he decides to go to Cecily. And this kind of happened in the previous book in God of Wrath, where he shows up to Cecily's work because he knows Jeremy's stalking her and has somebody always watching her. So he literally shows up there and is like kind of telling her to get back with Jer because he's sick of, you know, Mia and Maya like constantly hanging out with Jer. And then he knows like when Jeremy has shown up, that's when he goes like he's gonna kiss her. And Mia showed up too because she was with Jer when this went down, so she like kicks him in the balls and she's like all pissed off. So it was pretty great. And then they like kind of go out, and he chases her down in her car. And he's like kind of going in the other lane where oncoming traffic had come, so she's freaking out, and she agrees to go to the house with him. And so they end up finally having sex, and it is super hot. It's like primal play, all that kind of stuff. And she's a virgin. When he realizes she's a virgin, he's very into it, and like puts her on like this canvas so that like her blood could get on the canvas. I don't know. It was crazy. Landon is very hot. Like he's been a sexual beast. You've seen that in the previous books where he used to always go to sex clubs, and it just didn't really move him sexually, but he's very into the sex with Mia. So they definitely have such a deeper connection. One thing that I really did like was they have like this conversation kind of about her jealousy, and she's like, well, I don't want you hooking up with your side pieces. I'm not going to be your side piece. And he's like, I haven't looked at any other woman besides you. I don't care, but I've stopped going to the clubs type of thing. Like, so they basically have a talk about being exclusive. He's very possessive of her too. So there was some really great aftercare that he does too, for like what I wouldn't expect Landon to be like this. Like he was so much better than I thought he was going to be. So I didn't really mind his character. He does do some somnophilia because when after they had sex, like she's passed out on the couch and she starts having one of her traumatic nightmares from her childhood and she speaks. She says, no, no. And so he knows she can speak and he like wants to kind of take her out of that nightmare. And so he starts to fuck her while she's out and she's into it when she wakes up and actually helped get her out of like that traumatic, place in her dreams. But, Nikolai's getting suspicious because she's always off doing something. Nikolai is like kind of losing it in this book. And I think it's because we're going to find out in the next book stuff that's going on with him and Brandon behind the scenes. They're literally the couple that I'm watching, all the stuff going on in each of the books. And I think it's amazing how Rina Kent has like threaded it through each book to kind of tease us of things that are going on between Brandon and Nikolai. And honestly, it's my most anticipated book of this series. So he's like starting to get paranoid, wondering what she's up to. And then Brandon has even started to like kind of pull away from her and like distance himself. And so she's kind of wondering what's going on. So I'm sure that's revolving around like Nikolai stuff. So, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm really liking this. I think it's interesting to be in Landon's brain because he definitely is not normal. He is a narcissist, antisocial, psychotic type of feelings. But he's so smart and just to see the way his brain works is very interesting. And honestly, he's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I think part of the reason I like him and like not Jeremy is because he was diagnosed with that. He can't really help being that. Like he doesn't have those emotions. He's very, methodical, manipulative. That's how he is. Jeremy was just a fucking asshole and did horrible things and treated her like shit. So I think that's why I'm kind of liking this. So anyways, I will check back in with you guys once I finish the book, and I'm feeling like it's going to be pretty quickly here because I'm really sucked into this one and I'm loving it. So we'll see if Landon can even like turn out better than I even thought he is already. So, all right, guys, I will see you guys once I finish the book. Hey guys, so I am here with my final check-in. I did finish God of Ruin, and I'm happy to say I really loved Landon. I am honestly shocked. I thought he was going to be the one character that like I wasn't going to like, but I don't know. He won me over, especially in the last half of this book. I just really liked him. So, let me try to see where we were at because I literally am only doing 2 check-ins for this book. So I'm probably going to make this pretty quick. But let me get my notes here because I did write notes because I knew I wasn't really doing check-ins. I just got super sucked into it and couldn't put it down. And so I wasn't really doing check-ins. But anyways, I think where we left off. Oh, okay. So what ends up happening was that, let me grab my book here, that Mia actually kind of blows him off, not in a rude way, but she needed to spend time with Nikolai and her family because Nikolai is getting really suspicious and he's not liking her not being there all the time. So she basically tells him she can't be there tonight because she has to go do family stuff. Landon doesn't really like that. So he wants to be with her all the time. He's not really good at sharing. He's pretty possessive and dominant. So he had ended up sending a text, like an invitation to do one of their underground fights to basically their whole crew. So they all basically cancel their family night and go to this fight. And this fight is crazy because Nikolai and Landon are basically fighting. They're taking out all their aggression on each other. They're really like beating the shit out of each other. So it gets pretty crazy. I think like Landon ended up just like walking out. Like he didn't really care anymore. He didn't want to do it. But the fight was pretty crazy. So Nikolai is like becoming unhinged and, not in a good place. So, like, and at one point too, like when Landon goes out to his car afterwards, like Nikolai, Killian, and Jeremy are all out there. I think they had their masks on too, if I remember correctly. And they all had like their weapons that they use in the initiation, and they're like threatening him. And he's like, "Are you serious? Like, you can't do shit to me." He's like, to Killian, he's like, "If you do shit to me, you're gonna be in trouble with my sister." And he says to Jeremy, like, Cecily will be pissed, and like Nikolai basically can't really do anything either. So like it doesn't really go their way. So anyways, it was just a crazy another Landon causing chaos because he didn't get his way. Why do I not hate it? I don't know. I just love how into Mia he is. So like after that happened, she gets pretty pissed off when she finds out that happened and that he did that. And Brandon, during the fight too, there's so many crazy stuff going on between Nikolai and Brandon that I can't wait to get to that book. Like that's my most anticipated book out of the series, so I can't wait to get to it. But Brandon had like gone to like stop the fight. And that's another thing too, is like Landon knows that Nikolai is eyeing his brother, and he's like, "Get your fucking eyes off my brother. Don't touch my brother. Don't even look at my brother," kind of attitude. But so Brandon ends up calling her later and they talk, and he kind of tells her some important stuff about who Landon really is and like what she's dealing with. Let me think. I think I have this on a page. Hold on. Okay, so I found this quote that I really liked, how Brandon kind of explains Landon, and it really like sums it up in like a really good way. So he says, Landon suffers from an antisocial and narcissistic personality disorder, like Killian. The only difference is that Killian makes an effort to care, and I have no doubt that he treats my sister right. Land would never care or try to. He sees everyone as pawns or possessions. It doesn't matter what effort he puts into a relationship. He only makes it for egotistical reasons to benefit himself. I like you, Mia, and I don't want you to be one of the people he destroys. So that's pretty telling right there. Like that's his brother. And I think that really sums up Landon in a nutshell. And I mean, somebody that has antisocial narcissistic disorder, like that can't change. Like that's who they are. They don't have the empathy and the other part of them in their brain, like in their makeup. They just don't. So like, how do you be with somebody like Landon? What's going to happen with that kind of situation? So I thought that was really interesting. So this is like a wake up call to her. So she kind of decides to end it. And this bitch like is fucking crazy because who's she dealing with? And she's pretty feisty. She literally like ends things with him, and she tells him she's bored. They're over. To Landon is not going to take that. Like Landon is not going to let her end things. So I thought that was freaking hilarious and crazy of her to think that was going to work. But anyways, things don't work out. Like they're not together. He's kind of trying to be with her, but she's ghosting him. She blocks all these other numbers he tries to call her from. And then it ends up being her and her twin Maya's birthday, and they're doing the birthday party. She doesn't really care about it. It's more Maya's thing. And who shows up? Landon. He literally shows up to, fuck or ruin her birthday party. It's a shit show. He basically outs them, tells them like that they're together, and Nikolai loses his fucking mind. Like he loses it, and she's pissed because he did that. It's like just crazy. And like it was kind of cool because his twin and Glendon actually kind of tried to step up to defend him a little bit. And so it was crazy. I couldn't believe Landon did that. Oh, yeah. Okay. So at the birthday party, what was crazy is like Nikolai goes to punch Landon, and Brandon jumps in front of him and takes the punch. And so I just know Nikolai is going to be like devastated by that. And there's just so much going on behind the scenes with Nikolai and Brandon, so I can't wait to get to it. But he ends up going out front with them, and like kind of like Brandon kind of tells him like he needs to learn to practice empathy to be able to get the girl, you know, like he needs to be able to practice empathy and show that kind of side. And I mean, it's just so foreign to him that he really has to go out of his way to kind of learn empathy and practice it. There was a really good part where Brandon was kind of talking about Aiden King, that's my favorite from the Royal Elites. And he's pretty kind of like the same kind of behaviors as Landon almost. Maybe not to Landon's extreme, but you know, Landon talks about how like Aiden always accepted him and Aiden's son Eli. They're both kind of have those tendencies, and that Aiden accepted them for who they were and just tried to harness their interests to like so they don't go in a bad way. So I really liked that. Oh, okay. So later she's at that chess club. She ends up going like doing a chess match with him, and he wants to like if he beats her, take her out on a date. And so he actually like makes her dinner. Sorry, my mom's cat's right here. Okay, so he actually like makes her dinner. It's really sweet. It's like a really cute dinner date that they go on. Seriously, Lily? And so basically he's wooing her. And he is like she actually opens up to him about her incident that happened to her, the trauma, and that her kidnapper basically told her if she told anyone who they were or anything, like they would kill that her loved one in front of her. So that's why she basically stopped talking, because she didn't want that to ever happen. So, and then it became kind of like a mental thing of why she's not talking. So he's basically wooing her. And then there's a big interaction that kind of happens where like this guy like that was in his club that's pissed that Landon's not, you know, being all chaotic and doing crazy things anymore. He like kind of assaults her. Like he forcibly like gets on her and like gives her a hickey. And that causes Landon lose his fucking mind. He like totally attacks the guy. He ends up seeing her later with like the hickey on, and she tries to cover it up. Like, and he just loses it, and they get pretty sexual. It's pretty intense. So yeah, Landon brings the heat. I love Landon. So by this point, like they're fully together. She tells him she's his, but like she ends up going home because Nico kidnapped him at one point. So this big thing happens where Nico and Jer and Killian kidnap him, and they're like torturing him, and she finds out. Brandon warns her, so she gets there in time. And so she shows up and she's trying to stop him, and like Nikolai's not listening. Her sister was trying to like stop her from even showing up there, so she was pissed about that. And then they're like threatening to break his arm or his hand, like, which is his like, he's an artist. And so she's like begging them not to do it, you know. So that whole interaction goes down, which is not great. And she basically like needs to get away, and she goes home. And but Landon follows her. So her and Maya are at home, and Landon follows her and tries to woo her parents. But her parents are part of the Bratva. They're high up in the Bratva. Her father was an assassin, and her father is not buying into his like charming persona. He's like, this something wrong with this guy. So he's not really liking Landon, but you know, things go down with who the kidnapper is at the end of this book. And Landon saves her. So of course that's going to make her dad be okay with him. But the kidnapper was kind of random and just like no hints about this at all. So I thought it was kind of weird. It ended up being like, I think a previous maid or like whatever person in their house. And she like was fired or something, or left that. And then like a year later, she kidnapped her to get like the money, and her husband helped and all that kind of stuff. But the big thing that's revealed that's really fucked up is that Maya had told them about their route home. She was kind of jealous of her twin, and she didn't know like she was going to get kidnapped or this or that, but like she did have a hand in it. And then she was like, didn't want her to ever tell the truth. So like Mia just feels so fucking betrayed. She's like, you stole my voice. But when this whole like attack goes down with this kidnapper, Landon shows up with a gun and he goes to shoot her. The lady shoots him. And that's when like Mia finally finds her voice and screams for Landon. So he ends up okay. He's fine. And, you know, the mafia covers it up. So there's nothing goes on with it, but they end up together. She is kind of trying to forgive Maya, but they're not in a good place. But they end up together and there's some good epilogues in here. And I just loved seeing him like finally create, like there's this whole ending epilogue where he had finally shown all his sculptures and it was all of his muse and it was all of her. And they were like, his mother was like, oh, you finally have like, he was a genius artist, but until Mia came into the picture, he had like no soul in his art. So he finally does because of Mia. So I just love them. They're so cute. I can't believe I loved Landon. I loved Mia. I just think they're such a great couple. So I loved this. I gave it 5 stars and I'm so impressed with it. Another thing I got to say is when he went and visited with her at her home, then they did anal and under the parents' roof. I'm like, what's with the last 2 books where Rina had the guys do anal in their parents' homes? Like, why? Why? Anyways, this was spicy. It was great. Had a good time. But what I'm really excited for is to finally get to Brandon and Nikolai's romance. So that'll be coming in my next vlog. So anyways, I've just gone on and on and on, but that's how I do in these. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, thank you. Like, I don't think anybody makes it to the end of my vlogs because I go on. But thank you so much for watching this. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave me a like, comment. Let me know what you thought of Landon and Jeremy. Were you feeling the same things as me? I don't know. Landon better than Jeremy, in my opinion. All right. See you guys on my next vlog.